All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun, and we have finally arrived at the end of our revisiting of The Man in the High Castle final season, part 7. I want to thank Adam, friend of the channel, friend to it's a growing thing. I really appreciate the support of my community. And Adam is just one person that is now also a member of the Discord. So, if you want to be a member of the Discord, um, but I want to really thank everybody that watched, even the people that didn't like it, even the people who went, "Oh, this guy thinks this way." After all these years, I never knew, which is kind of silly, because anybody who knows my channel knows how I talk. Um, but this opportunity that I allowed myself to take because of Adam has really this has been a lot of good for me. Not only to re uh, invest in my version of YouTube and how I want to make content, being like a personal vlog mixed with pop culture and what the pop culture I'm watching or ingesting at the time, what it makes me think of, what it makes me feel, what it reminds me of, topics of the day, all that stuff. I put all that into my content. And I know it's not for everybody, but for the community that I've built here and the friendships I've made, and like when you get to the end of this and you see all that and you look around and you notice all of the people around you, and you know, you don't need to have a big channel to feel supported and have a great community, you know? And that's what we have here. And just again, thank you so much for everybody for watching and sticking with me. And to the new people, as usual, welcome. To everyone that's returning, welcome back. I took a lot of notes for this show. I took a picture of it. That'll be popping up here as I'm probably talking about it. But I took a lot of notes for this show. Um, I didn't always just rely on improvisation and stuff. Like I love being improvisational, but my notes at least keep me, somewhat structured and remind me of points that I need to hit. So there is like some sort of a script. I have taken like some of the hints from people that like that uh you know having some kind of plan isn't the worst thing in the world. But I also love not knowing what I'm going to say sometimes until I'm saying it. Or I like to, like, a split second before I say it, have to decide whether I'm going to say something or not. Um, but it's been quite a ride, and it's time to get into it. And we're going to talk a lot, and it's going to have some things in it. And like all my other content, I've loved watching how many people have watched these, and I also loved that I lost some. I said I was going to get in trouble, and I lost subscribers uh, from this. I know it. I saw the numbers, and you don't want to ever look at the numbers. No, you really don't. But the numbers don't bother me like they used to. Um, Even though I would, I'm not in this for the yeah. We're everybody that's on YouTube, man, from the biggest channel to the smallest channel. Like I sent somebody a like and said thanks. I appreciated your video, and they were like, there was something about the way that they talked about like, well, also like and subscribe, and and we all do it, but sometimes there's just that hint of that desperation that comes off. And I've done it. I've been guilty of it. We're just like, please like me. Don't go away. I just saw somebody come to my channel. I wanted to be big, everybody wants to grow. What the goal was is to like not have to work a 9 to 5, right? Well, I mean, it came to a point where I realized my 9 to 5 was going to suffer or this was going to suffer. And I know that this is neither here nor there, but I'm telling you anyway. And that's one of the many reasons why I've had to be less here is because I have to be good at something. And I'm trying to be good at life, which was another thing. I've actually been trying to have all of it, which means I make less content, but I do more in the world, which gives me more content to talk about, which gives me more life experience so that when I do make a video, I have more to say. So I kind of think of it as quality over quantity because holy shit, do we have a lot of quantity on the channel. But yeah, to anybody who got offended by anything I had to say, to some of you, I would say sorry. To the rest of you, there's a reason why I said what I said. And if it bothered you, good. Do something about it. And I don't mean like, how do you want to do this? I mean, like, look at yourselves, maybe, you know? But this is Fire from the Gods, the finale of The Man in the High Castle. No more after this, right? As far as I know, we're not getting a movie or anything like that. And in the end, I do think I was right about some things about this show that I talked about. But I definitely, like I said, was wrong. And I don't think the writing is bad. I don't think the story is bad. And I don't think that the characters are bad. I do think that there was a journey here in the first 3 seasons. And I do think that there were some course corrections. And I definitely think there were some mistakes made. But this is a really good story. And as much as some people don't like hearing that it's as important now as it ever was, it is. It is. At least that's how I see it. The way things are going, a lot of parallels can be drawn from what the American Nazis do in this show to what American Nazis are trying to do right now. Don't be fooled. They don't have to wear a swastika. A lot of them just look like regular ass people. Anyway, how this is going to be broken up, I think we're just going to do this straightforward. It's the last episode. Let's keep it linear. And we're just going to talk about things as they come up in my head. But we're going to stick chronologically to the story and see how long it takes for us to get to the end. Because this is like everything has come to this. There's no like, this discussion is going to be somewhat similar, but somewhat different because it's all over. Every scene is potentially someone's last. Even Childen is just gone and never seen again in this. He doesn't get like a nice just goodbye. He just gets a get out of here kind of. But that's not to mean that there aren't things to say. And we'll talk about like those kind of endings, I guess, So let's start right from the beginning. First, I guess up top, one of the biggest themes of this show was like, at least for Keto and Smith, was like, what did we do all this for? We did this for something. We did this for our children, right? And that's a big key thing to this whole thing. Like this show isn't a show about battles. We're not seeing, people going at it every other episode in big, Game of Thrones, but like, military battles, blasting each other over enemy lines, bombs and guns every episode. That's hardly any of this. This is about people. I mean, think Walking Dead, right? Walking Dead isn't about zombies. It's about the people who live amongst the zombies, and the zombies are just the plot device. In this, it's a show about people surrounded by Nazis. It's not about Nazis. It's about a bunch of people surrounded by Nazis and how they deal with it. Get it? It's a formula. Um, Keto, right? He fights for country and honor and duty. You know, this is the man I am. This is the man I want my kid to be. Like his influence on that. I'm doing this to I build this world and blah blah blah. And then over the course of the series, we see what that got him. And it's not to say that like there's not something to be said about fighting for honor and duty. It was about like, like it's about like war in general and the way that he was, the system that he lived that made him into what he was. Same as Smith, a little bit. Smith's whole thing, right? He has to justify because in this, I mean, it's confirmed. Really, he knows what he's doing is a crime. He's always known it's been a crime right from the get go when they first were offered by the by was it Eichmann? No, but the first time they were offered food and bread from the Nazis, and they took it, and they chose a side. Smith knew even then it was a crime, and he might have thought, maybe I'll figure out a way out of this. Just got to keep going for the kids. It never occurred to him that maybe no, because everything that he ends up doing is just for his children, not for the world's children, not for not for the like overall good, right? I mean, we think of like like World War II soldiers went to fight Hitler and the Emperor of Japan to make sure that we all they made sure that they get to keep their freedom. And Smith, started that way. Then we lost. And he probably thought that he, at some point, we could get out of this and, that this wouldn't last or something like that. And then the next thing you know, each choice that came down, as Helen says, this is who they became. And it's still just over his own family, not over, like, I'm getting ahead of myself. But those are big things that come out. Like, what happened? Well, Smith lost everybody. And as we also see, he doesn't know how to stop. And he knew it was a crime. And how did, like, this all comes very important to the end of this story. And the BCR, I mean, they've always been fighting for their lives and fighting for their freedom still. Like, they're the constant survivors. They're always being passed around, though, without ever getting their own freedom. And this is the episode where they finally have a chance to get it. Now, at the very beginning of this, the portal turns on, and then we hit our beginning credits. And I guess we should just mention, the Edelweiss song from, Germany. It was always a really good choice. I remember that when they play it in Sound of Music, right? It's meant to, like, you think of the flowers, you think of the beauty and the peacefulness, and then you think of like the time like that that movie was coming out, with Nazis. Not, I mean, it came out later than the war, but I mean, it was taking place during a time that was bad. You wouldn't even know it, right? You look at the Sound of Music, you would never know fucking World War's going on with how colorful and bright everything was. Anyway, I mean, even like parts of it looked like it was like so colorful. I thought it was in a Disney like Babes in Toyland or something. Anyway, I'm off topic already. But Edelweiss just is such an interesting, like, contrast. You like using such a peaceful song over such a terrible, like the history of Nazis in Germany. And like, we sing about beautiful flowers, but we also excel in taking over the world. Um, Rebirth, renewal. Like Smith is sitting there on TV talking about this, right? But instead of freeing anybody, like his chance, he got, Himmler's gone. Germany, that's the Nazis over there. They kind of want their own thing. They were tired. It was like basically what almost happened to Hitler with that Valkyrie thing, right? They just were like, you know what? We wanted like our own thing. We got it. We don't need every single thing that these people wanted to do. It's time to end that old way of being a Nazi and a new way of being a Nazi, which is a little bit less than a Nazi, you know? They were taking out the harder targets, which makes you already go that like I don't think the Reich could last 1,000 years because each generation that comes before it that will be like more and more inclined to push back against it. And I think Gertzman is basically saw that and was like, oh, but here's our chance to have our thing. And he gets it. And I mean, in the end, right, in the universe that they live in, the portal may be open, but there's still a Reich. And I like that we don't really have that answer. But for John Smith, what does he do? Instead of saying, hey, everybody, guess what? Take down the Nazi flags. We can finally put the American flags back out. No, that is not what he does. And he's still in power and he's still he's still even getting his own country. He still plans on nuking and attacking and putting in concentration camps the West Coast because he doesn't know how to stop. He is the version of John that is talked about by the other John before he died. The unending, desire for power, more and more and more and more until he's basically he doesn't even know like how to stop, and he can't stop, won't stop. Sorry, but it's just still him going on his own. Our family's in our family, right? Because he makes points to always say our family's no longer in danger from Berlin. And he's definitely giving off Walter White vibes now. Like, I did all this for the family. And her sitting there across from him, like, her listening to him. It is a very Skylar Walter White moment for me. I don't know why. Maybe anybody else feels that way. But he gives the answer. Like, she's like, he just says, oh, trying to take the train to the Poconos, 11 a.m. Bam. She gets it out of him like nothing. And I always thought that sometimes, like, they did all this, Juliana and everybody set up just so they could get the fucking time. All the people that died, all the people that, like, just to find out the answer to one goddamn question, which was, when is John going to the goddamn Poconos on that train? And all the things that had to happen for this important, just a question to be answered. But how sometimes it's not like how many people die to get it. Who do you have to talk to get it? And they had to get to Helen. And so all of that for his like itinerary, it's wild when I think about all that. I think it's crazy. Like how just casually it's given. But all the work that led up to it was so difficult, but no one knows but the people. Like the person getting asked the question has no idea. But Helen sees phase 5, which is again all the way going back to the rebuilding of the concentration camps in America, which But Juliana knows that something's coming. She senses something. She's been to other worlds. There's a hum, there's a vibration to it all. And the talk about what if we controlled it. And I'm just thinking to myself, no. I mean, in this world, right? There's like this kind of hopeful end to the thing with the portal. And I just think, no, in real life, if this portal existed and we actually knew about it, it would either way it would be abused so crazy. We'd probably end up like somehow imploding the universe in on itself like so fast. I know it. I know it. It's something that never should exist. Like the internet, right? We can't even handle the internet. You're telling me that we could handle a portal to other worlds? We treat everything like we're just taking a trip to fucking McDonald's. Like, no, it's not big deal. We won't do nothing, we swear. But even people that walk into McDonald's, it's a place that should be pretty simple to navigate, and people still find a way to fuck that up. People fuck up visits to McDonald's, and I'm not, saying the McDonald's, not going down this rabbit hole, but like, you know what I'm saying. Now we turn to Keto, where the white gang, the three-man white gang, show up, and once again, they're there for Keto. Um, I'm not saying that these guys aren't justified in their anger either. Um, they go. It's how they go about it. Again, there is, and it's an interesting, like, there's a black guy guarding an Asian guy. If you want to break down that simple, right? They're, even simpler, there's a criminal behind that wall. Happens to be Asian. Being happened to be guarded by a black guy. He's playing harmonica, and these guys come down there and they beat the shit out of this guy. They could have killed him so that they could get their revenge because they were denied it. And it's just the casual beating and moving on because we need to get what we want. And it just, again, triggers that part of me that's just the entire, the way that I see white people behave to everyone else around them these days is just, I don't care. I don't care. I'm going to do what I want. I'll just fucking hurt whoever I want. If they're not us, if they're not me, if they're not part of my family. And I that's what I see when I think of this show. When I watch this show and I look at the people around me, and I see so many of them acting like the fuckers in this show that are wearing Nazi uniforms. I'm not saying every one of them is like the little girl Amy. I'm saying, and the guys that are in San Francisco, they're not wearing Nazi uniforms at all. But they have the same tendencies of selfishness and entitlement and only for me. So we walk in here and just beat the shit out of a guy and don't even act like it mattered. Because that's life for us. We can just do whatever we want. It's white privilege. Anyway. But I'm not saying they're not justified. It's just Jesus Christ. That it's okay because they're not us. We can just, But they try to gas Keto, and there's no gas. But Keto hears this, and they try to go in there, and he does not kill them. That's the thing. He's done. They're not his enemy anymore, and he knows he deserves everything. But he also doesn't feel like dying in this room. So he takes them down and leaves the one guy. He'll be found, and he doesn't do anything but the other guys. But him walking down the hallway, you're like, oh shit, here comes Keto. But here's the thing. As cool as he looks going down that hallway, there's realities to this, right? we think, oh, he's gonna go in and just shoot the shit out of all the yakuza, and he's gonna free his son. It's like a fucking movie, but it's not a. They don't handle it like a movie. They handle it like real, like how it would really kind of go down, or like properly. I mean, I think in real life, Keto probably would go in there and shoot up a bunch of people and probably lose and die, and no, nothing would be served for it. But in the power of this in the story, at least, they write it as Keto understanding his situation. Um, which is where Childen finally comes in, right? Finally returns for one last little thing. And honestly, I think they probably should have just left him at the docks. Story wise, I think it's just better. He's still there. He's alive. There's maybe some hope that he could somehow get to Japan. But he's there to sell his shop to the Yakuza because he wants on a boat. But it to me is the way he's asking and who he's asking. He's asking the Yakuza, put me on this boat. Almost like you got to be like talking to a genie. Yeah, he could put you on a boat and you could get on that boat. They could shoot you in the head and then toss your body over because why honor it? Unless you get fucking like actual. I mean, anything could happen anyway, right? I guess that he could sign whatever. They could go, we, promise with our honor that we wouldn't do anything and they could still do something. But it just kind of felt the way in the wording. He's just like, just get me on the boat. But he's never gets a chance. We don't even know if he made it. I mean, I guess we're supposed to consider that he just goes, this is not for you. Go. He leaves his keys on the freaking counter. So when Keto comes in and starts shooting the place up, but just like that way, like, from the entrance where he's like a warning, he wants everybody's attention in the room. Childen's told, like, get out of here. And he just runs off, and that's it. That's the end of Children. And I feel like that didn't need to be here because I think just the other scene works better. Because now we just don't know. We never see him again. I feel like there's less hope in that than there was before. That's all. And it's just kind of anticlimactic way for a character to leave the show when they gave him a really glorious end to the character, I think, in the last episode. But Keto does arrive and he's there to take his son back. But the reality is, he's like, yeah, you kill us all, but we'll kill you too, and you won't get what you want. And so the real ask is he wants him to join the Yakuza. And to Keto, I would assume that this would be like a fate worse than death because it means an absolute end to his honor and duty and everything that he's done that's been a crime anyway, right? His name is Smith. This is like being put in prison, being punished for his crimes, which is having to work with the Yakuza. To go all the way to being a criminal, like officially a criminal now. He could call himself a soldier in wartime, but now to save his son and get him out from under, he has to, step up and be a dad. The only way he can now. And that's, being the right hand man. At least the Yakuza guy understands how valuable Keto is. And meanwhile, you've got Smith struggling with bombing the BCR, but I mean, it's like, he's gonna do it. Like he always does. He just sits there and goes, I really wish I didn't have to do this. But again, like he doesn't know how to stop. He's going to do it. He's just going to agonize before he does. And the BCR starts seeing ex-Nazi deserters showing up. And I mean, here's the scene. Like I think in a lot of war, there's tons of stories of soldiers killing other soldiers that were trying to give up. I know they're trying to say we're better than that in the story, that we would accept it. But again, reality makes me feel like that's not how we really handle things. It's nice. It's a nice story, but if no one's looking, it feels like those people would just be killed. and not be working, like cleaning pots and stuff like she says, you know. I don't know. But it's another chance for them to have their own country. Gives them the American flag and says, it's time to hang this up. It's time to remind everybody about America. And they talk, some of them are like, well, that America's dead. It never did anything for us. And I was like, you know what? Agreed. I do think that, like, they're talking about the United States of America, and that symbolization is dead. And honestly, I kind of feel like if it's not dead, it's on life support in real life, to where we might as well just call ourselves America, the states of America, if you want to be like that. I don't think we should be calling ourselves United anymore. I think that there's not going to be a unite. There's only going to be one way to unite this country. That's not true. I feel like if the country goes in one direction pretty soon, there will not be a United States of America, and not because we chose it. It'll be chosen for us. And I think that if the other if Trump gets in the White House, we might as well stop calling ourselves United States of America. That's what I'm saying. But at the other side, honestly, it's not much better on the other side, other than, yes, we will be able to stave off some of the evil that people have planned for us. But unless we actually deal with the other side's evil, we're always just going to be living with this constant fear that we've been living since like 9/11. Over 20 years of fear. It hasn't ended. You think it's going to end? When does that end? When do we make the choice that frees us from that? What is it, but they just, so this started as like symbolism about the flag. But the BCR broadcast, they break into the Reich broadcast and do their own like Outer Limits, Twilight Zone. This is not, like, you're not being fooled. This is not a show. This is us. This is America. We are free. You are slaves. But if you hear this, you are already a citizen. And if you're a Nazi, say your gun jam. They are giving everybody permission to stop and saying, whatever you did, we can just put our guns down and get back to being like, figure out how to get back to being a nation. Now, that in itself is great. And again, there will be a huge fight over the rest of the country, period. Because a bunch of white people might have just realized that they could be free, but they also have guns, and they also might have an idea of, like, they might not have bombers themselves, but it will be a bloody as fuck civil war. In the idea of this show, I think there's like this hopefulness, but there's also the dark undertone that still all exists. Things didn't stop. Like I said, there's still a Reich. We are at not all the answers are given in this show, which is great, which leaves you open to interpret. And I see like a huge bloody civil war in store for this show's universe. And again, it just goes like, we can't just let each other live. We always have to like kill each other for it. Smith looks like, his ally, played by Eric Lang, who's Jennifer Whitford. He's all right. I mean, he immediately is like, oh shit, I can finally stop being a Nazi. The look at his face like, oh. But Helen finally, talks to Smith. We went along. It's a different time. and everyone else over our, like, she talks about like how they picked everyone, they ended everyone else over themselves. Oh, this is what, no, this is Jennifer, actually. I'm sorry, talking to Helen in their big moment, and how she's finally telling, her mother what she thinks, and her mother finally having to tell her the truth that they did all this. They killed all those people. Where'd they go? To a camp? Where'd they do work? What'd they do then? It's like you can't run away from it anymore. You've already lost your son. Your littlest girl is gonna need like deep, like brainwashing, like cleansing from, what do they call that? Deprogramming. And Jennifer has just like completely rejected her parents, which is good, but it means she has no parents. She has the memory of good parents, and I don't even think she has that. She just remembers one day she was loved, and the next day she knew who her parents really were. And she at least admits her selfishness, because Jennifer's like, we're just like, in so many words, she's like, we're just three kids. How many millions of people did you kill because we had to live? And that's, again, that is another thing that's going on in our world. When I think of, and I was, somebody else said it first, but it was probably TJ Kirk or something, talking about like people who serve, and you got that person, Katie Britt from frickin' Alabama, right? Go figure. Alabama man, who talks about, the most important thing in my life is my family and my kids and everything, and I'm a U.S. senator. And it's like, they were right what they say on that channel, that if you are a U.S. senator and you prioritize, like, if you think your job as a U.S. senator is less important than your family, you shouldn't be a senator. If you're going to put your kids, I'm not saying that their family isn't important or shouldn't be important. I'm saying that there are some jobs where if you talk about how your family's more important than anything else and you're in charge of legislation, you shouldn't have that job. You shouldn't. Because people are just, they can't be trusted with those kind of biases. So that's all I'm going to say about that is, we got a bunch of people that are voting. I just don't want to I want to make sure that my kid, no, we, these people don't care about the rest of us. And Helen, she says, I didn't know that, I didn't think of those people until we became those people. And that's another thing that's true, is we got all these people that are siding with Trump and don't realize that when all is said and done, and this can be said a little bit to all sides of it, but mostly to that side, which is that once your usefulness is over on that side, they throw you away like you're nothing. You are just a means to an end, a pawn to all of this, and that all they want is to convince you to keep them in power. So they'll say to one side, hey, you like not being around black people? You think people that don't, that want to be different genders or different, right? Like vote for us and we'll kill them all. Without saying they'll kill them all. But that's what they're trying to get to. Because that's what the voter, like, that's what the general dumbass at the ground level is like, oh man, that means we're finally going to be able to kill all those people. Just don't make any mistake. They're talking about, like, they want people dead, right? They want people dead on the other side. And they don't see that they would be they're just the last ones to die in this scenario, you know? Like the guy says, I killed you last. Yeah. You're just staving off your own execution for somebody else in front of you. Hope y'all understand that. I mean, and the other part is we let kids die every day and we do nothing about it. If kids are so important, why are we letting them die every day? From just one after another instance of gun violence. But that's okay, right? Because we just have to have those AR-15s. We have to. We have to. It's our right. Oh, Jesus. Well, when Helen sees the concentration camps all over again, and Martha's different disappearance is finally noticed and dealt with, you know, they're like, here's, I think she's dead. Helen and Smith knowing that Helen had to have known this, that Martha died. Right? Right? But he doesn't really throw it in her face. He mostly just kind of has that look of like, I know. Tim, I think the death of Martha means nothing. Like he's so far gone that it doesn't matter. Because he's gonna drag her to the portal and make her see anyway, right? And we finally get to like Juliana, where poor Wyatt. Oh my god, they did a really good job at the knife effects and the cuts on him. But he's sick and tired of being Wyatt Price, and he's cut up the shit. And he's knowing like this. He almost got murdered by like to him. He's the action star. He was almost killed by it was Captain America was almost killed by Black Widow, basically. And that woke Captain America up and is like, I can't, I'm too old for this shit. And in this scene, it's reminded me that, like, yes, they fixed some of the things from the first seasons, which was like the love triangles, although it was like more like a love quadrangle by the end, in a little bit. I mean, I guess Frank and Joe and Wyatt never really all interconnected, but they all were connected to Juliana and her just losing everybody. I like that they didn't make this final season like that. Like this wasn't a show that in the end was about like, who's in love with who and oh my god, are they gonna not kiss? And she gonna end up with this person or that person? I'm glad that this show didn't end like that. That this never devolved completely into some like every other show that won't let its characters just every character has to be end up together. But Helen finally, after all that she's seen, she contacts Juliana and gives her the information, betraying John to save her kids from him, from themselves, from her. And it's admittedly a weak try that she uses to get out of not being on that train. I think they had to write a scene though like that. Like, yes, I betrayed my husband. I don't necessarily want to die with him though, but I don't really have a good excuse. So we got to try. But she's getting on that train. Our final scene with Keto is he finally, he's again a great send off, literally. I mean, he's at the docks just like Children was, seeing his son off, and all he can say is like, I failed you. I have to stay here, and this is my punishment. I ruined your life. Now your reward is now in the end is to just be free of me, be free of all that. He tells his son all this stuff, after all the damage is done, and I think a lot of father son relationships, including my own. I pick a father in my case. I don't even know who to be mad at anymore. Like, is it my biological father I haven't seen since 1987? Is it the stepdad who emotionally and verbally and physically abused me my entire life? Just about. Is it the third sort of dad that married my mom that was kind of cool, but also turns out to be a guy who didn't pay child support and went to jail over it? Who do I look? Who do I look? Is it my grandfather who I looked up to, and then also emotionally, verbally, physically abused me? Anyway, I'm not saying every father son relationship is as complicated as mine, but I think that a lot of father son relationships don't need to be as difficult. It's just it's terrible that we still like people are destroyed by each other because they can't show kindness or compassion. That a father feels like he can't tell his son he loves him and is proud of him because that's weak. I don't even know. I, a couple of months ago, my sister in passing like was leaving. She's like, "I love you." I hadn't heard anybody say "I love you" to me in so long that I didn't know what to say because it was like hearing something that somebody says to somebody else. Real villains also don't die like they do in the movies. Not all, I mean, they eventually die. Everyone dies, but Keto lives. He's in hell, forced to stay here and work for the Yakuza. Probably die a bad death. Maybe he'll do something, to redeem himself. Who knows? Maybe he'll work for the BCR in secret. But those are all just maybes. Real villains live and die old men. Look how long Henry Kissinger lived. Look how old all these guys are. Mitch McConnell looks like translucent fucking like goddamn like something out of a goddamn horror movie, man. If you put that guy in the dark and you were to like suddenly turn on a flashlight on him and you swear you could see right through the fucking guy. It's not right. Like like in the X Files movie when the people would like what was inside them would like hollow them out. That's what I look at McConnell and that's what I think of is those bodies that are being like eaten from within that you can see through them. Anyway, the bullet train. We're in it. We're at the end. We're barreling towards the ends, folks. Wyatt Juliana prepare for its arrival, and Smith is on the train talking to Helen about have you ever been approached by the resistance? And she just comes clean because I mean, why not? Found the films, and then Smith tells Helen all about all this. And as they're doing this, they're talking about how they're going to blow. And this is such a small thing, but I just really like it. Is they just set up bombs, and they go, "Okay, is the bomb set up? Okay, good." And either it goes off or it doesn't. I really like that they explain how to blow a column like a tree, and that like with the sandbags, and they're like, "Okay, and then we do it like this, and then we do it like this, and then we blow this, and that's what brings the column down in on itself." I like that they really took the time to tell you how to do that. Not in like for real life kind of like use, just that somebody actually explains how this would work, how you make this work. Just interesting. It's just an interesting out of nowhere explanation, and I really appreciated it. But the big thing is them talking on the train, where we knew this was headed. He wants to bring Thomas here. Smith wants to bring Thomas here. And she's like what? Like a prisoner? You're just gonna yank him from his world and bring him here? And he's like, he might hate us, but he'd be alive. We'd be saving him from death, which we couldn't do here. But we're gonna do it over there by not letting him go to Vietnam because I'll see him die. And John's, again, I've said this before. It's hard to like make yourself see John Smith as a person, as a man who's did all this for his family, but he's still so deluded that he never got to Walter White's breakthrough of no, I did this because I wanted to. He could never get there. He saw so many versions of himself that, like he talks about with Juliana, he went mad, even more mad, thinking about all the versions of himself he could be. And him just thinking that this is it. This will be the thing that saves it all. This will be the thing. This will be the reason why it's all worth it. Except he forgets that it's just, if your family's already gone, you destroyed it by making the choices that you made. And, can you live with that? You're going to just yank this kid from a mother who's lost her husband, the good husband, and her son's probably the only thing keeping her alive. And maybe he'll die in Vietnam, but that's his choice. And again, John taking choice away from people to, make up for all the things that he's done. But there's no getting done. There's just, you have to end. This all has to end. It's the only way to stop it. It's not to just keep going. See what we have become to save the kids. And it's again, what are we becoming to save the kids? We will blame everything else. But the system that's been in place that's been making this happen, the laws that are in place about guns, because of we hide behind rights. We never think to amend these rights when certain things are not necessary anymore, when laws and things that are in a constitution that have been around for hundreds of years that applied back hundreds of years ago, but stop applying at some point and never looked at again because deep down, again, the populace is so afraid of its own government that these people think they're like, I gotta keep my guns because I have to fight my own. It's we are destroying ourselves by never re-examining our history and why we need to change. And we keep having to do this dance every fucking generation. When is it going to be my turn? Because like right now, it's Gen X's bullshit. And we've got a bunch of Gen Xers who won't fucking admit that we got to do this. So what next? Then the millennials will be like doing it? We don't know what. And will we even get to that point? When is enough? When can we finally fucking say it's time to stop the goddamn train, get off, have a fucking conversation about how to actually fix things? Sorry, I'm making it sound like this is just how simple it is. It's not simple. It would be difficult as fuck, but we've got to do it. Because that's the only way to really save the kids, is to stop blaming all the things it isn't. It isn't wokeness. It isn't transgender people. It isn't other races. It is not just mental illness that kills people because of guns and other things. It is the goddamn institutions that we have in place. We might have to inconvenience ourselves and maybe have a few less guns around. It's about education and becoming less ignorant. I live in a very ignorant area, and they seem to be proud of it. That whole thing of you think you're better than me, you think you're smarter than me, the level of insecurity over intelligence never gets people to actually, in mass, change that about themselves. It's like they give up on educating themselves and just say, well, it's too late. We have to like at least try to remind adults that we can always change. We can educate ourselves even at older ages. We can relook at things. We can let go of things that we know are bullshit. We can admit that we're wrong. It's okay to be, even if the sheer embarrassment of it all. Oh my God, what will people think if once I realize and I admit that I was wrong, people will look down on me. Stop. We spend so much time worried about what everybody else thinks. It's why we get stuck in these fucking patterns. Think about how many people look like they're ready to forgive us as soon as we just admit we're wrong and that we're sorry. How many times do you get embraced by your parents when you're afraid to say something to them and then they turn around and they actually understand, or vice versa? It doesn't have to be this hard, but we make it this hard because we are people and we make everything harder. Because we we can't let things go. We can't forgive ourselves. We can't stop being hard on ourselves, and we can't also forgive and let things go from other people. Their mistakes. We all hold each other so accountable for things instead of letting things go when they need to be. And I'm guilty of it too. But Helen Smith gives the order for phase 5. And Helen just says, like, this is when she says, I know about the camps. This is all a crime. He says, I know. I don't know how to stop. They're on a train. So this is kind of an interesting conversation when you use these terms. And that's when she betrays. They start getting shot from the Nazis see Wyatt's group. They start shooting. Helen and Smith now know that they're being attacked. And that's when she's like, it was me. I did this, John. And the bomb blows the column, and the bullet train goes flying off the rails, and Helen dies. Because, yeah. And John, you know, drags himself out. His men are getting gunned to pieces. And Juliana goes after him. Meanwhile, Wyatt and his group have the mine, and they're just basically waiting on her to catch up. Where she finds John. And if you guys hear these birds going crazy, hang on a second. Sorry about that. There's a bird that, like, where our dryer like pumps out the hot air, release. A bird has flown into that and made a nest inside there. And in the morning, it scratches and makes all this fucking crazy noise inside our house. Basically, the nest is inside the house. I just can't get at it unless I rip out the hose from the back of the dryer. And I don't want that to happen. Anyway, right at the end of this, Juliana is hunting Smith, and she sees Tagomi's symbol finally. And she looks at it, and it's like the meaning of this is pointing at John Smith. This is the end of it. And she finds him on the cliffside. He's got this Nazi armband off of himself. And he talks about how it's been unbearable to look at through the door at all the versions of all the people you could have been. And this is the person you became. And that is a very powerful thing, he's saying to me, how I see it. And how I try to re examine myself all the time to constantly fight back against my own worst impulses. And I think that if we all did that more often, I think we'd be happier. I think there'd be a lot more happier people around us. That's all I'm saying. But John Smith, I mean, it's the end for him, right? It's it. It's either she takes him out or whatever, but he takes himself out. Blows his head off. And once John Smith, word of John Smith being killed and dead is quickly passed along. I mean, this is convenient. He died in a place high up so that his own people could have said, John Smith is dead. We have confirmation. The dude's body is on the big ass side of a mountain. It gives Whiteford, played by Eric Lang, the chance to call off the bombs that were coming to San Francisco, where they were preparing to they were going to be obliterated. With the amount of planes that were there, they were going to be obliterated. But now that it's over and they call it off, we get the symbolic Belle putting down her gun that Hampton wanted to do when he said it was over. And Abinson, the man in the high castle, in the mine, finds Juliana. He's still alive. Of course he is. Like I said, he's not a good person. He's just a person. He's made some bad choices. He's been very selfish. He lost Caroline in the end over all of it. In the end, how many people died because he wouldn't let go of that one person that, And I'm not trying to say that it's easy. And I'm not trying to say that I wouldn't have my own difficulties making some of these choices. But like when no one makes a sacrifice, when no one is willing to make the sacrifice, this is how you end up. Sometimes seeing that this is what it takes to get people, but no one wants to be the example. I'm not saying everybody should go out there and get themselves in peril, but if no one risks anything, you'll lose everything. But they embrace, him and Juliana embrace, and the portal opens, and all these people that are dead here in this universe that they're in can come here now. All the people that were lost. And it's a nice idea. Because Frank's symbol is there, right? As they look, it's like guiding people to them. And A believes because he has nothing to, stay here for. Wyatt and Julia hold hands as we fade to black. As all these, the hopefulness and the possibilities that are there now. And it may be anticlimactic for some that John just pops himself off, but this show was never about like huge, giant spectacles. Those were in there occasionally, like the fall of the Statue of Liberty, or even the bullet train, or, like Wyatt's, like it's, at the beginning of the season when he's all taken down by the Nazi forces. It's not been that kind of show. It's been a different kind of show, a more cerebral show about people making bad choices and where it gets you. In this, like a lot of shows do, except this one's about what would happen if the Nazis took over, and what would happen to us as Americans. What would we become? What would we feel like we have to become to survive? And what does that mean for us now? And if you can't at least look at this show from that perspective, then I don't know what to tell you. Because, like I said, it's not a show for entertainment to me. I'm not entertained by this mostly. I'm entertained by the performances, um, and the work that's in this. You can see, like there's just a lot of hard work that went into making this show. Those are the things that I enjoy about it. A lot of it is hard, and it's a hard show to watch, but I think it's an important show still. And I'm so glad that I got to talk about it and talk about all the ways that it affected me and all the things it brings up. And man, I'm all over the place. I know it. I know that I don't always make sense. And sometimes I got things that I write down and I have a better idea of it at the time. And sometimes I get lost and sometimes I get too passionate about it. But I'd rather be that than never stand for anything. I'd rather make a mistake here and there in my stands than never standing at all. And I want to thank Adam for making me, not making me, but I want to thank everyone as well that helped me get through this life. And I hope that you guys continue to watch where my life goes as I continue making content and talking about what it makes me think about, what it makes me feel, what it reminds me of. Because this show, talking about it, it reminds me why I do it. And why I do it is for a ton of reasons. But for right now, I'm going to talk about the community and just say how awesome it is to still see some of you in the chat. It's so great to see some of you return, and that feeling that comes back. And sometimes they're bad feelings. Sometimes they're like, oh yeah, that's right, I'm reminded of this. But so much of the time it's, oh yeah, that's why. And it makes me just want to embrace the people that are closer to me because of it. So I don't know what I'm going to be discussing next, but I'm hopeful that it'll be something worth doing and something we're talking about. And I hope you guys come along for the ride. So thanks for watching, everybody. This has been The Man in the High Castle Revisited. I don't know if I'll ever talk about this show again. Okay. So this is strange because you just heard me say, like, I don't know if I'll ever revisit this again. And then it hard cuts. Or, well, for me, it hard stopped. Because I know that I kept on talking at the end of that video, but there's some stuff missing. And it's not really that important as stuff, but it just ends. The video just ends. I didn't get to properly say anything like and subscribe and all that crap. So I'm adding this little epilogue to the end of this hard cut that happened that I just discovered while editing the video. So I'm glad that I edit my videos. Unlike the way I used to a long time ago, where it was just like counting the time on the video counter to how long before my recording capabilities would turn off. But I don't know when or if I'll revisit this show for a long time, but it was great talking about it. I'm hoping that everybody that watches this finds some value in it. If you didn't, oh well. But like, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next thing, everybody. Thanks for watching so much. Thanks for my community, and thanks for everything, everybody. Bye.